Share what you believe and what
I am
others
a fluffer for the most important event tonight, which is the happy hour. But I will be bringing you some more interesting and fun concepts today. I will not be showing you my project. I'll be hopefully getting you something that you can use in your own projects. And this is a video that we made as a Mario-style tutorial of how you can use the first version of Chomp. The music is actually a AI song that's made by one of our community members. And we'll have this concept come out over and over again, novel yet familiar. So in that video, we showcase something that is familiar, which is the Mario style, but something novel that we added in is a new character and a new flow that introduces a new game. And that will come out. I'll kind of touch on that subject throughout this talk. So complexity kills adoption, which I think is a no-brainer, but it's surprisingly counterculture in crypto. So a lot of people, I mean, you've heard a lot of the talks today. They're very complex, very sophisticated. And not gonna lie, I've been in crypto for 4 years. A lot of times I sit in your audience space and I'm like, what is going on, right? What are you talking about? Because it's so hard to understand with new concepts and new terms being invented every day. And there's money involved, there's risk involved. So it makes people afraid to touch it. This is a slide I borrowed from Brandon, from Solana. Thank you, Brandon. But when you have new words, new concepts, you have money, and you have new innovations happening every day, people are confused. And more often than not, when they're confused, they're less likely to use your product. So I'm here to tell you about how to make complexity accessible. And this may not be super helpful for you if you are an algo trader. You know, you already are playing in a very complicated space. But this will be helpful for you if you are thinking about building a consumer-facing product and you're using some complicated crypto or blockchain-enabled elements that maybe users don't need to know, and you want them to know just a little bit to reel them in, or you want them to discover how important and novel it is as they play along with your product. And this is probably an interesting talk for you if you're a user, because I want you to tell me after this talk, did I get it right? Are there things that you wish you could see in a product that I haven't touched on, that we're not building? So, hi, I'm KZ. I'm the co-founder of Chomp. I'm also a fictional animal enthusiast. Here are 3 photos of me pretending to be Pokemon, me pretending to be a monkey, and me sometimes wearing a mascot suit to the mascot of my brand. And I go aura farming with people that are more famous than me in crypto. So if you don't know who that guy is, you are not a crypto trader yet. All right, and I come from a plethora of different kinds of backgrounds before going into crypto. So I started my career as a product manager at Mattel. I built one of their first iPad products. This shows my age, because back then iPad was a new thing. And then I was working at Deloitte as a regular consultant, explaining to a lot of people, why their processes and why their tech needs to be changed and improved, and why is it not good enough right now. And then I was an educator, actually bridging East and West in their education system, also across cultures, to bring, so when kids are coming abroad, they're not just those people that have stellar SAT scores, but they also have great soft skills, critical thinking skills. And I had to explain to parents why they had to fork over some of the money that they spent on SAT classes over to improving their kids' soft skills and self-awareness and presentation skills. And then I was at IDEO, which some of you might know as one of the leaders of human-centered design. I was there for 3.5 years, not only working with design and understanding what good design is, but also explaining to a lot of Chinese businessmen why their logos were so expensive and why human-centered design is important for their business, and why design isn't just a logo, it's everywhere, it's everything, it's in all of our products. And finally, I got into crypto. I was the first business hire at Orca, which is floating between top 2 to top 10 as the largest DEX on Solana. I worked with the founders to build this thing from 0 to 1. I left as their COO to build Chomp. Yeah. So like I said, Chomp, what Chomp is less important. What's important for you to know is that it is a consumer-facing platform, and I want to talk about our approach of how we're making this product accessible. And I do have an ulterior motive for why I'm talking about that. I'll share that later. So I'll be mainly going through 3 different tips. They sound pretty simple, but I'm going to go through how we're applying these tips, both in our own protocol, our own product, and also in some examples. So the first one is make it fun. And let's break that down. When I say make it fun, I mean make your product fun to use, make your content fun to read and to watch, and make your community really fun to be a part of. So the first thing is making your product fun to use. So it's important to know that Chomp is a content-based platform, and if you're also running a content-based platform or there's content in there, there's actually a lot of things that you can play with to make that content engaging and fun for your users. So here is, so we actually had a deck, so Chomp is primarily a quiz game, and we made a deck that's just asking people what they think about, like their everyday decisions. Would you rather be rich or free, rich or powerful, rich or famous, rich or happy? I think what's really funny is everyone chose rich until we got to rich or happy. And then you also get to see this difference between like what they think other people might have picked between would they choose rich or happy. So if you have a content platform, you can essentially use your content inside of the product to strike up a conversation. So when we put this deck out, we saw a lot of discussions on Twitter, people sharing their results to see what their friends think, and people talking with their community, and that became actually a moment for people to connect, not only with each other, but also with the product itself. So I will encourage you to think about every single time you put text in your product as a moment to make it more fun and thought-provoking and engaging. These are, and that's a little bit more product specific. You might not have a content or like text heavy platform, but here are a few ways to maybe gamify it and make it more fun. This is missing one graphic. There's actually 3 ways a mystery box inside of Chomp will open. So the very easy way to, in crypto, the easiest way to make your product fun is to give them rewards, right? Give them money. But we can actually add a spin, a twist on top of that. So here we have a character, and every time when you open a box, there is actually a different variation of the character that pops up. So when a user is playing around with the product, they know that something is coming. Not only do they not know what's in the mystery box, they also don't know what is the animation that's going to come out in front of the mystery box. So it gives you this like extra moment of surprise and delight and fun for users. Another thing that we didn't anticipate that became this like big retention tool for users, but when I say you're going to be like, duh, of course, is streaks. So a lot of people will use streaks and maybe like reference streaks when they talk about Duolingo. And it's being seen as one of those dark patterns that Duolingo has. So like people say that you could have like 480 days or 2 years full of streaks at Duolingo, and you still don't know how to speak any words of that language. And that might be true, but if you are an early product builder trying to get people to come back, streaks is a very useful tool that we learned afterwards. So on the left, do we have a beam thing? No. Okay, so on the left, we have this mini dashboard. On the top left, we have 1-day streak. That's my streak. I don't play around with Chomp every day. And we just put up a few different stats to see like which ones users will care about. And what we were pleasantly surprised by is we had users that started using Chomp on day 1 and kept using it every single day for a whole year. So in the middle, we have, so his name is Tolu, and he discovered Chomp by accident when we first pushed out an MVP. And then it became this like competition with himself, and he was streaking every single day. And when he started to share him breaking out like, oh, thank you. That is the graphic I'm referring to. So when Tolu started to share, we had actually a lot of users start to like share their streaks. And here is Matt sharing how he just broke his 100-day streak, and that was a special moment for him. So we kind of like jumped on that and turned it into this like 100-day club, and now we have like dozens of users that have broke 100 days on their streak. And this takes more dedication than I have the power to keep up with. But we see this just organically happening. Users start to compete with each other, they compete with themselves, and that's a very simple way for you to make it fun and increase retention. Another way to make it fun is to make your content fun. Sorry, I have to do this because we're in Boston. So if in doubt, always meme. Is it always meme? Yes, you can always make a meme and make it interesting to grow engagement. You don't really have to make that meme about your product. You just need to create that positive association between your content and a user. Of course, bonus points if you can get them to be more interested in your product. So here are a few examples of people who are doing it really well with fun and interesting content. On the left, we have MetaDAO. Does anyone know what MetaDAO is in the audience? Wow. Well, I haven't gotten to your face yet, Mo. Let's stay on MetaDAO for a moment. So MetaDAO is a protocol that kind of is proposing something called decision markets, and they use a prediction market-like element that's grounded in research by Rob Hansen starting in '95, and then he published again in '97, and then in 2011, et cetera, to talk about how you can use prediction market elements to make better decisions. And actually, the founder of MetaDAO talked about these kind of academic history and market design for a really long time. But recently, he switched into making these video shorts. And they have gone really, really well. And that's a way to make a very complicated concept and maybe hard to understand concept accessible to users. Another one is done by my dear friend Mo. Mo, what did you do here? Yeah, and then what were you doing when you were talking through this? You were actually taking a walk, I believe, right?
I was walking, I was driving. I think I know there's a lot of comedy involved. Yeah, and some post-production.
Yeah, so thank you, Mo, for participating in my presentation. So something that Maurice did here is that he integrated something that is novel into a familiar setting, right? He is walking, he's hanging out with friends, he's driving, just like we all do. But while he's doing that, he's adding this novel concept of like stablecoin yield earning and introducing stablecoins. And that gives users some reason to make it relatable, right? Make it feel relatable to them. Like, oh, he is just a normal human, just like me. But if he can talk about these concepts, if he can understand this concept, it's not too complicated. Maybe it's like accessible to me too. There's actually a cheat code to making something fun and accessible, and it's to make it cute. So here are some examples. It is not that hard to decipher the rules. They all, Labubu, Pudgy Penguins, the Duolingo Owl, and Chompy, they all have large heads, they all have round bellies, and they all look like babies. So if you're not really sure how to make your protocol accessible and fun and impressionable, just make a mascot and make it like a baby. And I thought this is just something random that I like to do because I like these cute things, on my pants over here, but it's actually research-backed. So there's actually been several research done by either the medical profession, psychology, and also design about how baby-like things, baby animals in particular, are actually very, very accessible and approachable to humans. And the cool thing about that is after you have this character, you insert it you put that shit on everything, okay? So here we have some examples. Oh, we're not supposed to have sound on for this. Okay, that's just me, fucking around in a costume. But you can also kind of put it into a partnerships campaign. So here's us working with Bonk. You can also write a particular meme. For a while, everyone was Rose. Chompy can also be Rose. And then here is just, again, like a novel but familiar concept that we did. It's a National Geographic style video of Chompy in the wild. But as the story is going on, it's actually talking about how Chomp works. And thank you, the team of Eclipse, for letting me film on location at their conference. Here are some tips that you can do. And the final part of making it fun is to make your community fun to be a part of. Here are some examples. If you're short on ideas, don't just like airdrop them. Give them something that they have to work for because they're going to enjoy it so much more. It's going to be more memorable, and they're going to associate kind of more positive memories and experiences with your protocol. So we've done March Madness style competitions. That is Meme Madness, and then we had this competition with Orca that once you use Chomp, the product, to vote on the most likely to win meme coin, and the winning meme coin actually gets extra liquidity incentives on Orca. So it's like a collaboration that's done in a more fun way that also leverages usage of both of the protocols, also gets your community involved. Here for Easter, we did a scavenger hunt of looking for Easter eggs with Drip. Drip House, which is a platform that incentivizes, that helps artists get paid. And we work with a few different artists. It was a total of like maybe $500 to commission Chompy art. But we allowed our community to go look for different Chompy art with different artists, and then they can win a collectible at the end. And the third one is competition. There is a little bit of real money in there, but you're increasing usage, you're getting your community involved, and you're, again, making this positive association between your character, your symbol, and fun. And here are some other examples of how your character can extend into more community engagement. It's very hard to ship plushies out of America. So when we had overseas users who just couldn't get any, so some of them ended up, one of them crocheted her own Chompy, and we celebrated her. So this is more a slide about celebrating your users, celebrating your community, making sure that they're being rewarded not in money, but also in like positive reinforcement. We had another user for Christmas last year. She made a little hat for Chompy, and we celebrated that. And we had users who may not be as artistic, and that is perfectly okay. And he contributed in like making his own questions, making his own decks, and launching, in DeFi sense, launching his own markets on Chomp. And we celebrated him for bringing in new content to open up new conversations on Chomp. So the key factor here is celebrate your community, make sure that their contribution is seen and heard. And tip 2, I'm going to actually go through very quickly because my time is running out. It's Eli 5 them, and this applies differently to different protocols. I think Uni has done a really, really great job of Eli 5ing people, associating liquidity with coffee and inviting a conversation about what liquidity means in a different sense. Talking about it just works, kind of creating this like association between a very simple and easy to understand machine and the complicated concentrated liquidity AMM that Uni has. And then bag for bag, right? Swapping your bag, but also on a plastic bag, kind of making that easy to understand and associate with. Okay, I only have 30 seconds, so I can keep going. Do you guys want me to keep going for a few more minutes? Are you guys having fun? Yes. All right, I'm gonna keep going. Sorry guys, late for happy hour, that's on me. Okay, so another part of Eli 5 them is there are a lot of, so Chomp is pretty complicated under the hood. We don't have to go into it, but pretty much it is started from a set of algorithm that was actually discovered here at MIT called a solution to the single question crowd wisdom problem. And here it addressed things like higher order beliefs. So first order is what we think, second order is what we think other people think, and then third order, fourth order, so on and so forth. And in addition to that part of algorithm, my co-founder also wrote a paper recently, a few months ago, called A Framework for Elicitation of Honest Subjective Information Under Adversarial Conditions. And that is a mouthful. So for an end user, they probably don't care about all that. And we don't have to bore them with it. And some people might object and say, oh, but this is my way to nurse snipe a user and get them to use my protocol. That might be true. Unfortunately, in the total number of users that you're trying to attract, it's likely that nerds will be in the minority. So let's create something that is more kind of Gen Pop friendly, and then those people who are interested in understanding the complexity and the intricacy of your protocol, they will discover it naturally. So we'll have these available. But instead, what we'll be showing a user is something like this. Familiar yet novel. novel. Believe in something. That is a meme that everyone hears about. But the concept is novel. The game is novel. Because we're introducing, this is also familiar. They can make money. Here's something that's a little bit novel. You're sharing what you think, and you're also sharing what other people think. So we're not talking about first order belief, second order belief, higher order belief, and how that leads to a better outcome. It doesn't really matter to them. We just tell them that the more accurate they can share their beliefs, the more they can earn. And we're making an association between a popular meme that's familiar, believe in something, and a term that we want them to understand, which is chomp it. And that's a term that we're inventing ourselves. There was another part of that video. There was a cool beat drop that you missed, but that's okay. So here, the lesson here is you can invent terms because sometimes your protocol is very hard to explain with like lots of sentences, and you want them to kind of associate the complexity or the novelty of your project, which is like one word. Before there were search engines, there were probably other search engines, but now we just say Google it. Like that's one example. Another example would be maybe like not so great of an example is I used to work at a DEX, so I always reference uni because I don't want to reference the DEX that I worked on, which is pretty much the same one. So for uni, they invented a term impermanent loss. And now it's being used by everyone. It did not exist before because AMM did not exist before. But the problem with that coining of the term is now we associate impermanent loss with actual loss because of the word being impermanent and there's permanent inside of it. But it's a little bit too hard to change. To change it into maybe a different term called divergent loss is very hard because you did a really good job of repeating that term 1,000 times. And now you can't shake the underlying meaning of that term. So you can invent your own term. You probably can't invent 10 new terms because people will forget. So invent one, associate the most important thing about your protocol with that term, and just say it 1,000 times. And the third tip, the final tip, is listen to your users, but not in the way that you thought you were supposed to listen to them. I had a really long sentence here. I showed my husband. He told me to shorten it. I hope that still makes sense. Just listen to your user. My husband's in the audience. Hi, Andrew. Okay, so listen to your users. And I think this is thrown around a lot, but there's not enough user research kind of background and capability in Web3 yet. And this is something I have a lot of opinions about. And I like to think some expertise in. So I'm going to talk about 2 user research fallacy I've seen in Web3 very, very frequently. First one is your enthusiasm is too infectious. And I'm talking to you founders if you're in the audience. When you are doing user research, stop trying to sell them your product. I've seen this with founders over and over again. They will be like, oh, when I do user research, when I test my product, everyone's like, this is interesting, I'm going to use it. But they're probably just saying, this is interesting. There's no enthusiasm behind what they're saying. The enthusiasm came from you, the builder of the product. So sometimes when a builder is trying to understand the users, they lose sight of the purpose of that conversation. It's not for you to sell your product to them. It's actually for them to give you their honest opinion. And a lot of times, because the person on the other side is the founder, sometimes users will be inclined to appease the founder or to say something positive. So don't fall for that. The second thing is, and I'll talk a bit more later on about how not to fall for it. The second fallacy I've seen is you take advice like building something people will want to use at face value. I see this thrown around a lot on Twitter. Oh, I learned that the magic is I have to solve a house on fire problem. I have to build something that people need. Well, no shit, you have to build something that people need. But you don't necessarily, or to use, but you don't necessarily have to solve a house on fire problem, especially in consumer product. You're not solving a house on fire problem. And also in yield earning, they have capital to put in your protocol to earn yield. Their house is not on fire. So those, do not take those advice at face value, and do not just go into your community and be like, what do you want to see? What do you want to see? I see this happen so if you are 16 or 18 years old, you're chucking Celsius every single day, you can build everything that the community asks for. Great, you can go do that. But most people have finite energy. You cannot build everything that user asks for. And nor should you, because that makes you unfocused as a protocol. And by the way, this is why you see a lot of really busy UIs in crypto. And you see a lot of slogans like, this is something for everyone. This is everything for anyone. That's not really, like, anyone is not here. You need to choose what you're building and who you're building for. And the best user researchers that I have met, mostly when I was at IDEO, they almost have no emotion or personality of their own because they don't want to bias the result of that interview or the result of like what they're looking for. Usually, you just need 3 sentences when you're talking to someone. Tell me more. Why is that? Oh, I see. These are the only 3 sentences you can use on repeat in a user interview after your opening sentence, because you don't want them to say anything that is intended to agree or disagree with you or your statement. You just want them to keep talking. I'm Chinese. There is a word in, this is a traditional Chinese character, and the meaning is listen, but it actually has so much more than just listening. Because when we think listen, we think listening with your ear, but you're actually listening with your eyes, with your attention, with your heart, and also with your mind. So don't take what people say at face value. Also observe their surroundings. Also think about what they're not saying, because that is oftentimes more important than what they're saying. A very simple way to do that is, instead of asking them questions, maybe you can ask them to share a screen and walk you through their flow. So maybe don't even ask a question if you're worried about biasing them, and just watch and just think, and then ask the questions later. So I'm going to share a simple example, actually, that I learned from, I think, the best user researcher I've met when I was at IDEO. This is an AI-generated image, because it's a proprietary research document. So she was actually working for a skincare brand. They're trying to invent a new type of skincare. And something that IDEO does a lot is extreme user research. So instead of like interviewing the actual target user of the skincare, which is like maybe men in their mid-30s or women in their mid-30s, they will interview and observe children who like don't often interact with skincare, and also like other more masculine people that you wouldn't think that will interact with skincare or care about their skin. And in this case, Eileen, the interviewer, she chose to interview a truck driver. So she is in this truck driver's house, and she's like, do you do anything with your skin? Do you take care of your skin? And of course, this guy is like, nah, no, not at all. I'm manly and whatnot. So they did this for about 20 minutes, and she couldn't have any breakthrough and like understand how a potential like a man like him could potentially have a skincare routine. And then she noticed a foot spa that's folded away and hidden behind his couch. And she was like, tell me about the foot spa. And then he's like, oh, yeah, I mean, as a truck driver, I'm always using my foot. My feet are always in socks and in shoes, and I'm very tired at the end of the day. And I relax my foot and like relax my tension using a foot spa, and I do this almost every single day. So here she discovered that there is a skincare routine that this guy does, just not on his face. He does it on his foot, and he actually does it very regularly every single day. And it's actually easing, some of his very critical pain or critical problem that he's having. And that is an example of how someone isn't just doing research through asking questions and listening to that answer, but also observing and reframing the question to get a better outcome. An example of how that applies in our everyday world. So I mentioned before that Chomp is a quiz game, and we show them an answer. So in the beginning, we used to show a very simple answer page like this that shows you what the best answer is. And if you want to know what best answer means, you can ask me later. It is not majority answer. And we kind of show you like, why did you win money or why did you not win money? Because we're like, okay, you're a crypto user, you care about getting paid, right? Winning more money. But then we started to see a lot of users onboarding their girlfriends. So Matthew was like, I onboarded my girlfriend because I was chomping, and she was interested in the same questions, but I didn't want her answer to be, oh, we gotta, okay. Anyways, the moral of the story is I went and did some interview with them, and then I discovered that it's not the winning that these people cared about when they're playing Chomp. They actually cared about understanding what other people chose and how they're similar or differently from them. And that prompted us to change our answer view screen entirely, and we got very good outcome from that. So here are the tips to get your user from visible confusion to visible happiness. Make it fun, Eli 5 them, and listen to your users. And if you want to work with a team that has a similar approach to a product, please come and apply. We are hiring a founding product designer that will work very closely with me and my co-founder. We're also hiring engineers. You can DM me. And if you want to follow Chomp, it's chomp.games, just all spelled out on Twitter. Thank you for listening.